Buddy, many diesel drivers don't realize they are hurting their engines every day. The biggest damage often comes from wrong RPM behavior during normal driving. Studies from popular auto sources show diesel engines are designed for torque at low RPM, but misuse forces extra heat and pressure. The solution is learning the safe RPM range for your diesel and avoiding long high RPM pulls. A simple tip is to shift earlier and keep the engine relaxed. Stay with me, buddy. The next part explains why this habit kills engines faster. A common reason diesel engines fail early is running them like gasoline engines. Diesel builds power differently and hates constant high revs. Data from auto engineers shows long high RPM creates excess soot, turbo strain, and injector wear. The fix is staying in the torque band and driving smoother. Try using gentle throttle and avoid flooring it unless needed. The next segment will show what turbo owners must know. Many diesel failures happen because drivers don't understand turbo behavior. High RPM with sudden throttle changes spikes exhaust temperature and cracks turbo seals. Research shows turbos last longer when RPM stays stable. The way out is simple, buddy. Keep RPM steady and avoid sudden revving. A tip is to let the engine warm up fully before pushing it. Before we move on, let me remind you, you're doing great learning this stuff. Buddy, another RPM mistake is downshifting too late. When the engine lugs near idle, it shakes hard and stresses bearings. Mechanics say lugging is just as harmful as over-revving. The fix is shifting to a lower gear sooner when speed drops. A tip is to keep your RPM above the minimum torque curve. Up next, we talk about injectors. Running at wrong RPM causes injector spray patterns to change over time. Low RPM soot builds up, and high RPM pressure overloads the injector tips. Auto research notes that this leads to poor combustion. The solution is using the right RPM so the fuel burns clean. Try adding a good diesel cleaner every few thousand miles. The next segment explains the hidden turbo intercooler issue. High RPM for long periods overheats the intercooler and raises intake temperature. Diesel engines hate hot air because it causes power loss and more soot. Keeping RPM moderate helps keep air cold. A tip is backing off the throttle on long climbs. Buddy, before we continue, remember small changes make big results. Driving at high RPM while towing is a silent killer. Diesel engines under load already work harder, and the added RPM forces extreme cylinder pressure. Studies show towing safely means staying in mid-range RPM. The fix is simple, buddy. Take it slow. Shift earlier and let the torques work for you. Next, we discuss EGR problems. Wrong RPM increases soot and overloads the EGR valve. When EGR clogs, the engine loses power and fuel economy drops. The fix is driving in the clean-burning RPM zone. Try longer, steady drives to help clean the system. The next segment will explain why exhaust temps matter. High RPM raises exhaust temperature past safe limits. Over time, this damages the DPF and turbo blades. Experts say moderate RPM keeps EGT stable. A good tip is watching the tachometer instead of relying only on sound. Before moving on, let me say you're doing great taking care of your diesel, buddy. Low RPM city driving all the time causes carbon buildup. Diesel engines need occasional higher RPM to burn soot. The fix is doing a short highway run at mid RPM once in a while. Try 20 minutes at steady speed each week. Next segment, we talk fuel pumps. Wrong RPM puts uneven load on the high-pressure fuel pump. At extreme RPM, the pump works harder and wears out early. The solution is smooth acceleration. A tip is avoiding sudden RPM jumps from stop-and-go traffic. Up next, we talk about transmission issues. Holding high RPM for long periods overheats the transmission. Diesel torque is strong and heat destroys fluid fast. The fix is keeping RPM steady and not forcing downshifts. Try manual mode when needed. Buddy, stay with me. The next segment is important, and you're learning fast. Turbo surge happens when RPM changes too fast. This sends shockwaves through the compressor wheel. Technicians warn this causes early turbo failure. The fix is smooth RPM transitions. A small tip: ease off slowly instead of snapping the throttle shut. Next, we talk DPF regen. Wrong RPM affects DPF regeneration. Low RPM driving stops regen from completing. Research shows mid-RPM helps complete the burn cycle. The fix is doing steady drives. Try watching for regeneration signs. Up next, we look at engine mounts. Extreme high RPM vibrations wear engine mounts. Diesel already vibrates more than gasoline. Keeping RPM moderate helps protect the mounts. A good tip is shifting at the right speed. Buddy, before we continue, remember progress starts with small steps. Running at wrong RPM overheats engine oil. Hot oil breaks down faster and loses protection. The solution is monitoring your oil temperature and shifting earlier. A tip is using the recommended oil grade. The next segment explains piston and ring wear. High RPM increases cylinder pressure and wears piston rings faster. Low RPM lugging also stresses the rings. Staying in a balanced RPM range keeps wear low. Try keeping the engine in the smooth zone. Up next, we talk about turbo cool down. Shutting off the engine right after high RPM driving cooks the turbo oil. This creates sludge and kills the turbo. The fix is letting the engine idle for a short moment before turning it off. A simple habit goes a long way. The next segment discusses long-term fuel savings. Using the right RPM gives better power, longer engine life, and lower fuel cost. Auto experts prove smoother driving adds thousands of extra miles. The solution is driving with intention. A tip is checking your RPM every time you shift. Buddy, stay close because the last segment wraps everything up. Buddy, you now know the RPM habits that protect your diesel. Drive smart, and your engine will reward you with long life. If you found this helpful, like, share, comment your experience. Disclaimer: this video is for general information. Consult a qualified mechanic if you have specific engine issues.